Just putting this on live in a minute, maybe a second. And we are live. Welcome, welcome. I have here today a gentleman by the name of Jason Billy Bishop, and he talks about passion, purpose, and life mastery. He had a very interesting story, and we actually connected because within his journey, he discovered, or I discovered, that there was life before this life, where he was thriving on alcohol, on compulsive behaviors, and living off the hormones of stress. But life's changed now, so we're here to talk about the journey and how easily anyone can fall into that trap, but also how simple and easy it is for people to come out of that. So welcome to the live, Jason.
Thanks for inviting me. Awesome. It's good to be here.
Very welcome. So where are you tuning in from?
South Wales.
Where was it?
South Wales.
There you go. All the way on the other side of the world. And Isn't it amazing that these days we can do these things, jump on Zoom and just have a chat with complete strangers across many oceans without having to dial many numbers around the sun?
It's fantastic, the people I'm meeting just because of this. It's incredible.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? Let's answer that question. What was life before you became, one of those people that overcome the trap of alcohol, compulsive behaviors, and stress? What was life like that before you started to make the decision, one of the most important in your life?
I mean, where should we start? Because I know I've gone right the way back through my life.
Look, we've got
timeline stuff, really. But I did it after the event, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of did it as I was moving forward. So I know that it impacted me moving at 5. Yeah. And then I moved schools again at 11.
Okay.
Well, so I think, I know my personality. I know how I deal with things. And I control, or did control. Mm-hmm. So by the time I lost my grandfather at 14, I wasn't sharing how I felt. And when that happens, the most devastating thing that ever happened to me. But I didn't share how I felt. So by the time I was sort of 16, I'd taken my mother's car out and written it off. So 15, 16 years of age, I was off the rails, yeah. My life was off the rails anyway. But I played sport and I played music. So that kind of allowed me to calm my body and mind. By the time I was 19, I'd found alcohol, and I'd also found that it could very quickly allow me to change the way I felt. Mm-hmm. But it's not just the alcohol, is it? It's the environment, it's the people you're with, it's what you're doing. Because you can distract yourself, you can numb yourself, you can have a great time. And then you associate what you're doing with feeling good.
It's such an interesting time for a young man, isn't it? Because you're going through the hormones changing in your mind and body. You're going through dealing with the grief and the stress and the suppression of emotion that you experience when you lose someone that you love. And it sounds like, you had a lot of love and respect for your grandfather. So for that to be taken away from you.
It is a huge point in anyone's life, mm-hmm. because everything is changing. But he had a brain hemorrhage. When all my grandparents were away together, and he had a brain hemorrhage, and my dad and my uncle flew him back from Spain. And I went to see him once in the hospital, and it wasn't a great experience. He was slurring. He was kind of giving me what I look at now like his final speech. Don't let yourself down. I'm thinking, oh, I'm not enjoying this. So I said I wouldn't go back. I said I'd see him when he had recovered from the brain surgery, and then I never saw him again. So it wasn't just the loss of him and the expectation of him being in my life. It was what I didn't do. In my mind, I couldn't be bothered to go and see him.
It's very hard, isn't it? Because at that age, again, like you don't really know what you're supposed to do until in hindsight later you look back and, with a little bit more wisdom and maturity, maybe you may have decided then to do it differently, but it's taught you a lot about how to, really come face to face with that now. And I think it's important for people to hear that, especially as a man, men in general tend to.
Yeah, and I think, when myself and my life eventually had completely fallen apart, disintegrated, it was time to sort of say, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but we have to face life, don't we? Yes, but
Exactly.
unfortunately, it had taken 20 years of fighting people. I mean, I've been fighting all my life, and I don't forget not trying to fight to feel comfortable and be in control. I never felt like I quite fitted in, but I always had a lot of friends. I had to be better than you. And if I wasn't good enough. But even when I was good, because I was good at sport and things,
Mm.
I still didn't like looking at the other person that was good. The
Yeah.
whole relationship wasn't healthy. And the competitiveness was out of control.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a healthy competitiveness. So when I meet my business partners, and I worked with these people before we started our own business, they started trying to control me.
Mm.
So round about 19, 20, 21, you're just having a laugh, you're drinking. We were drinking a lot, all of us. But as soon as people started telling me not to do it, I was like, you can just do one.
Right?
Yeah, you can just do one. You're not telling me how to live my life.
Yeah,
And
it's
it just got worse and worse. And then there's finger pointing and there's blame, because none of us are now taking responsibility. We're all just saying, oh, I feel like I feel because of him.
that's
Not
right.
one of us is
There's a big lack of ownership, but again, it's
huge.
something that we're actually taught how to be and process at that age, especially if we've had mentors or parents that weren't taught themselves, So this is why we sort of, pick up a new mentor along the way and, start to become aware of the behaviors and of the way of being that you're, adopting in the moment that's not serving you moving forward. And then you start to think, okay, well, how can I do this a little bit better? And speaking of mentors, who was it that you sort of, gave you that aha moment and made you realize something needs to change here or we're going to spiral very quickly?
So I mean, I was in hospital at 30. I mean, we were all drinking, but I was drinking considerable amounts, and the whole thing, the sinuses and everything were going. And one of my partners came into the office one day and said, "That's his liver."
Mm.
So I kind of look at him and think, "Oh, I'll prove to you, I'll stop drinking." So I then had the delirium tremens for 3 or 4 days. There was spiders and snakes crawling all over me. I was on an intravenous drip in a hospital bed for a week. But I came out of that and it was horrendous, right? It was just a horrible experience, but it didn't frighten me enough in any way. So I went back to the office and I had no intention of changing anything about me.
Mm.
I wanted the world to change. I wanted them to change and not
Isn't it
me.
a belief that people try and instill into the planet versus themselves? That it's them that needs to change, not us.
Yeah. But unfortunately, everyone in my office was doing the same thing. So we just did that, So I mean, that turned into 10 years of depression because my family life had fallen apart. My romantic relationships had fallen apart. The business has fallen apart. My relationship with myself was just horrific. And then I'd turned yellow. I was losing my muscle mass. I wasn't fit. I wasn't moving. So all I was doing was drinking, really. The landlord of my pub said, "You looked like you hated everything." I mean, I got to the point where I was shutting down. I was just exhausted. I'd been fighting for so long. My
Mm.
body, nothing. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. So all I was doing was drinking. There was nothing really good in my life, and I often talk about the fact that you don't need drink to feel sorry for yourself. you can do that all on your own, because everything around me was crumbling, and there's no way I was leaving my business, because without my business, who would I be? So when I discussed this with my coach, my first coach, shut down. I mean, obviously there's the polyvagal theory and that, but he said you basically, it sounds like it was passive suicidal ideation, because I wasn't doing it to myself, but I didn't want to be here. So I collapsed at 40, and I was taken to an ICU. I was in the ICU for a week, unresponsive for 3 to 4 days. They eventually gave me blood because I hadn't died. And then I was in a hospital bed for 6 weeks. But it wasn't nearly dying, because if I nearly died, or if I died rather, then I wouldn't have had to cope with that, would I?
The human body is resilient despite what you put it through. And it sounds like what your first coach mentioned is absolutely the truth. You know, we don't realize that unconsciously we're creating a path of self-destruction because we don't know what to do in order to align to self.
I didn't know what to do anymore. I just didn't know what to do. I was doing what I was doing. I was going to the place I felt most comfortable to sit on my bar stool. Wasn't really engaging with people, but I couldn't be here on my own because I didn't like my own company. So it was better to go and be on my own around other people.
It's so interesting that you raised that, because I had a live call last night with one of my mentors, Luke Pierce, and it was exactly the same thing for both of us. One of the biggest aha moments was really learning how to become comfortable in your own skin when you're alone without feeling alone, like you needed to reach and be codependent on the alcohol or the behaviors or whatever it is that you're compulsive.
But I was compulsive. I mean, I'd be buying clothes, and my relationship with cars was the same. Traveling. Yeah, it was always, it wasn't so much about the experience. It was about, look what I'm doing. Look what I have.
And you can see that, right? You mentioned it earlier. There was a pattern of needing to want to be better than other people.
Definitely.
Proving yourself, not people pleasing, like proving to people, which is
constantly needing to be better.
Yeah. So
it only comes from one place, doesn't it? It only comes from you not being enough.
Does that do emotionally and mentally and physically if you're living by the lens of stress driven by needing to prove something to someone, the hustle mentality, if you want to call it that. There's a lot of that around, and I can see that it's causing people a lot of dis-ease, a lot of stress, a lot of conflict and out of conflict in their lives. But in order to become aware of that, sometimes, because it sounds like you're very curious and very all out and all in, and that means when you do something, you push the pedal down. If you're a car enthusiast, selling my ride motorbikes and that, you have to go.
One of my business partners, once I'd sort of written my website and put it out there, once the business had been dissolved, he came to my parents' house. I was in my parents' house, and he said, "Do you do anything by half?" I'm thinking, we've been in business 20 years. You have no idea who I am, do you? You have absolutely no idea who I am. Although now it's a lot more measured. My behavior, I'm a lot more aware about what I'm doing, because I had to be, because I left the hospital with cirrhosis of the liver, esophageal and stomach varices, portal hypertension, an acute duodenal ulcer, internal bleeding, potential brain damage, a loss of muscle mass. I mean, I was just a mess. I couldn't walk, and I couldn't walk unless it was people helping me. So I completely rebuilt myself. I had basically an almost complete mental and physical breakdown. So it was like, well, I had a great starting point because I had a walk. But it's funny that the things that you take for granted, I started appreciating walking.
Beautiful thing to be able to walk. And yes, absolutely. It's not until I left.
My friends and I, my two friends that I used to drink with, we walked every morning, and we walked along the sea and around a golf club, and it was just amazing. Really tough, really difficult. I couldn't, my hips, and I had no strength at all. But it was just like, okay, I'm challenging myself. I hadn't challenged myself in a long time. That's all I've been doing was fighting. And they're very different things, because it was visceral with me to fight these people, to not be controlled. And that was across the board for all my romantic relationships, anyone, parents. I said to my mother once, I said, do you remember me kicking holes in my bedroom door when I was about 4? And she said, oh yes, you were a little. I said, but you'd lock me in my bedroom. I said, don't you understand? Yeah. So I mean, I started challenging myself, and then I had to go to the gym because one of my doctors told me I wouldn't be able to regain my muscle. Another doctor told me I possibly wouldn't be able to balance, and then the other one told me I would potentially have brain damage. So I told certainly one of them I'll prove him wrong. My gastroenterology specialist, I said, I'll prove you wrong. He said, I'm sorry. I said, I'll prove you wrong. And he said, oh, I hope you do. I said, just watch me. I'm not listening to you guys. You're not putting me in a box now and telling me I can't be the person I want to be.
I think this is why we had a conversation. But people need to hear what you've been through, because you're the type of person that is a challenge accepted. You have the mindset of, okay, if you say that I can't, then I'll show you how to do it 10 times. And when it comes
to irony, though, isn't it? Because it's the flip side of the same person.
Exactly.
It's the person that puts all that energy into digging this very, very deep, dark hole, who says, okay, now you're having it. And I'm now going to prove to the world what I can do. I'm still, right, at this point, I'm still not interested in looking particularly inward and making it all about me. I'm still making it very much about you and the world. Just watch me. So, I go to the gym and I employ a personal trainer, and we work together, which was great. I started to eat properly. So nutrition came into it, sleep, hydration, all the nice things, all the things we should be doing, which I hadn't done for years. So I regained my muscle mass. And then a friend of mine introduced me to cycling. And it didn't take too long before, well, I mean, firstly, we were doing, the 100-mile ride didn't take too long. And I see people writing books on doing 100-mile rides. And I'm like, well, what's that about? Just go out and do a 100-mile ride. And then in 2016, we cycled from Barcelona to Monaco. So I've been riding a year. I'd come out of hospital in 2014, and in 2016 in September, I was standing on top of Mont Ventoux.
It would have been a beautiful ride and scenery between Barcelona and Monaco.
But it's an amazing thing, right? Because during that short time, really, I was spending time in nature. I was breathing, because now I'm on my bike. So now I'm sort of, everything is rhythmic. It's almost like meditation. I've read into this initially, yeah. So it's the rhythmic cycling patterns, the breathing. You're appreciating what you're doing. You're loving life. You're smiling. You're not forcing. And your body, or my body, was responding, because by 2018, when I went back to see my specialist, first time I actually seen him, he said, oh, you're looking fit. I said, oh, thank you very much. And he said, you have nothing to prove, don't you? And I said, yeah, but I did to you. But my body healed. During that process, that it was sort of we did Mont Ventoux, and then I did Santander to Malaga with some other guys that I'd not met. I am now very comfortable in spending many, many hours on my own, firstly, and then alone. And while I'm doing it, I am working out everything that happened in my life and addressing all the emotional issues that I have been suppressing since the age of 5, probably.
But how powerful is it to become the master of your mind, the master of your physiology, in terms of creating what it is that you want to see in your life, versus, defaulting to just basically trying to prove something to someone that isn't even watching?
Right. So, I mean, it's very interesting that because, I mean, I understood when I played rugby and music, how obviously they made me feel different. So it was a natural thing for me. Not only, firstly, I had to walk, then I had to regain my muscle mass. I didn't want to put Lycra on. That's the last thing I wanted to do. But it was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I've got to overcome myself, haven't I? It's very quietly now. You're starting to wrap it all together. You're overcoming the fact that people will talk about you in your Lycra and just little things.
Mm.
But then in 2017, particularly, I did 12,500 miles on my road bike. And in 2018, I was doing the same thing again. Right, I got to about 11,000 miles or something, and a friend of mine asked me why, and I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know because people don't care.
It's very interesting because I had a very similar, not with a bike riding, I do ride the bike a little bit of party, but for me it was actually obstacle racing. For some reason, I just love being like a little kid, and maybe it comes from growing up in the country and being muddy. You know, there was something about getting muddy and tough muddy and sparking and road challenges and being freezing cold, you know. So before ice challenges and, you know, cold plunges were cool, I was doing that back in 2009 for fun, and people were like, oh my God, why are you doing that? But it was the same sensation. You kind of get lost in the high of being in the moment. I still have my first scarf and the first obstacle that I jumped and ripped my leg open. It was just part of the fun. But then I looked at my wardrobe and I had like 25 medals maybe from, you know, going through those obstacles, and it was just the one year. But I think it was very similar to what you're experiencing. I just got so lost and present in the moment that it wasn't about proving that I can do the obstacle races, that I can get up from the point, that I can climb right, and other people couldn't do it. It was more just like self mastery. You know, it was something that I was doing for nothing. It wasn't proving to anyone that, you know, I'm better than you. It was more like I wasn't fit once upon a time, and now I'm really fit. It feels so good just being in the moment and doing that for me. Like, it's the race against yourself, right?
Yeah, it's a really great feeling when you do bring it in and make it about you. I mean, I fell obviously into the whole. I wasn't on social media. I joined in 2015, and I fell straight into that Strava thing,
Mhm.
chasing people on Strava, and you know, and I think it doesn't. I don't really. I won't say care. Care's not the right word, but it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're doing it with awareness. As,
100%.
as long as you're moving forward and you're heading. I mean, I'm heading towards this vision of this person I want to be. So, I mean, I'm going to the gym, and then I've been on my bike, so I'm brown and I'm toned, and I'm walking back into my office in my training kit. So now, without saying anything, I'm now setting boundaries. I am now, in my mind, saying, hello, you've never met me before. Now, attempt to bully this guy, because the one you started bullying at 19, together, you have not got a hope in hell of bullying this guy. And you could see it in their faces, you know, one of them, oh, you're fit. The other one put his head down. Thinking, oh, I'm coming back and I'm taking over. You've never met anyone like me in your life. But once you start getting into these flow states and you start being with nature, so you've changed it from being in nature, yeah, and your whole relationship to it has changed, and your relationship with yourself has changed, and you've started, or at least resolved a big portion of the issues that you've been carrying around in a rucksack. Suddenly fighting these people in your office for control and money, and that is just less important to enjoying your life, cycling through Europe, meeting great people, being around friends you genuinely enjoy being with, doing really, you know, amazing things.
Life becomes such a different playing field, and your perspective widens and opens so much. It gets so much deeper when you go inwards. And I had the same experience, you know, and I'm going through now what they call an awakening, just more becoming aware of the self. whatever you want to title it, I actually left behind people that I was connected to for, a quarter of a decade. So, and it's not because there's love lost or, you don't like them. It's more like what you said. They just have a different perspective on what they value. And for me, it no longer aligned to, do the things that force you to drink, compulsive behaviors, doing silly things, and just not feeling like I was in life. You touched on it before and you said it's the human being experience, not the human doing experience. And the more you can be at one dimension versus,
Yeah,
basically,
and it's again, it's an amazing thing that I can sit in a chair in the dark on my own and do nothing, or maybe listen to some vinyl, but not have to have stimulation like I've always had to have.
and
But the whole existence thing in the mind and the body is just more peaceful. It's just calmer.
it's
There's no
so
need to be doing.
it's so important that you're sharing that right now because we're living in a world that is full of distractions, options, and like you can walk down the street and there's so many things that you can engage with except yourself. Basically, it's distracting you from yourself, right? So with everything that's going on right now around the world, in our world, I just want to stress that to people. One of the best ways to de-stress is to actually start paying attention to what it is that you actually feel like you want to do versus try and fit in and do everything that people want you to or whatever. One of the most powerful things that you can say is no. Right? And it's amazing how you've been able to flip from the trauma and stress and grief that you were going through when that happened with your grandfather, and which pushed you in the direction of needing, wanting, craving, codependency here now, riding from Barcelona to Monaco and doing all those bike rides and just sitting with yourself and being comfortable with yourself. It's such a big achievement in anyone's life if you're able to do that. And I think that's why I personally, and I think you agree with the power of engaging in the practice of meditation versus medication. It's so simple and easy to do if you get into the moment and you can tap into yourself, tap into your breath, and really have a look inward to see what it is that makes you feel good and that you want to be here versus, stressing out about all the things that, the to-do list that everyone seems to have except me.
Yeah, and I think if you're talking about meditation, we talk about this a lot. I mean, I think people have got the wrong idea about it as well, because they think it should be done in a certain way.
Sit on a
If you
cushion
just
by cross the bed,
if
hugging.
you just close your eyes and just let it happen, you'll find out what works for you, and your mind will eventually quieten down, and and then you'll find that peaceful place. But you just do it as you want to do it, not like the guy on YouTube says to do it. It's all a very personal thing.
I totally agree. And, I was talking about this to two of my friends actually because they said to me, I can't meditate. I can't sit there. There's no way I can da da da. And I said to them, do you know what I think meditation is? Meditation is to become present and familiar with what's going on within you. So, and I said to her, have you ever just gone to the beach and just kind of stared out into the water and you have no idea what you were thinking about, but all these thoughts came up and then you just decided to breathe and let it go and the ocean took away whatever it is that you were thinking and you can't even remember what you were thinking now. That is meditation. And I had the same conversation with a guy who's also kind of enthusiast, a big outie fan, and he said the same thing to me. I can't do meditation. There's no way I could sit there on a pillow and da da da. I'm like, have you ever gone into your car, after you've pumped up the engine, you've given it a good clean, and you're running up the hill, and you've got the window down, it's rolling, it's a V8, and you're just in the moment. All you can see is you, and you're like Eric Bana in The Beast. It's just no machine. But that is meditation. That is you being in yourself and just tapping into what it is that's happening around you.
It's the state, isn't it? It's and I found it again on my bike. I found that, and I talk to other guys, and you say, often you'll say, "Oh, that 6 hour ride felt like it took 2 hours." Yes, yeah, that's it's flow state, it's meditation. It's a place in your world
Mhm.
you've gone into. But the moment you say, "I can't do something," you're putting a block on it. So you
Yeah.
just got to say, "Well, I'm just going to do it."
So whether you think you can or you can't, then well, you're probably right.
Well,
That,
yeah, and I hear people say, "No, that's not true." But another friend of mine said, "I will never see the top of that mountain again." And I looked at him and thought, "Well, no, you won't then, will you?" Because until you say, "Right, I'm going to get up to the top of that mountain," well, you're never going to see the top of that mountain on a bike again. And
well, yeah,
it's like, see,
people.
I had this thing. I mean, I'd spent so much time saying no, 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 no.
Hmm.
I got to a point in my life where I thought, right, I never want to say that again. I wish I had, or yeah, I'd rather say, right, I am going to do this now. And once you've gotten over the thing that you need your business, you need your cars, you need your this. Don't get me wrong, I love cars, I like clothes, I like all the nice things. My bikes are expensive, I'm not that guy, but they're not who I am. And
Yeah,
they were always part of my identity, who I was, who I am.
yeah, it's
So
a great point that you raised there. A lot of people tie their self-worth to their identity, and then something goes wrong and business goes south because, business is perfect. No, it's not. It changes. It's a roller coaster. It's a constant. The only constant in business is change, right? I think it's really good that you raise the point of just being happy with you because, I've said to people, if you took everything away from me, I will still be happy. And that literally happened to me in 2017. I had minus $10 in my bank account. I went to the petrol station. I'm like, shit, am I going to eat? Or am I going to fill up my car? That's a story for another time, but it made me realize how happy I was to have my health, to have the friends that supported me along the way, to have my littlest thing that I could lean into to have nature because I couldn't afford to do anything at that time. I would go to the beach a lot. I would go to the nature a lot. I would just be with myself versus needing to go to the expensive restaurants and all of that. And I agree with you. I've had that lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that. I welcome all fun things, but at the same time, you don't need it to get fulfillment in your own if that's not something you believe.
no, you don't. They're very, very nice things to have. I love going to great restaurants. All the nice things in life, I have not turned my back on at all. But they're just less important because how I feel, my state of being is far more important than anything else. And
Exactly.
it's like when you get to that point in your life, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because you think, well, I've learned so much. And then I went out and learned about everything that happened. I didn't understand the neuroscience and the neurology, neurobiology, epigenetics, all the things. And I'm like, all the things that and trauma. I was watching a post this morning, trauma informed coaching. I mean, I understand it from a living it perspective, but I needed to know what happened. And then when you learn all that, you think, well, I can't not share this with people. So it
Yeah.
becomes very quietly, you've fallen into what your purpose is.
Exactly. And this is why I wanted to bring you on because, you've had a very raw and real experience and segue into falling into this world, which is exactly how I fell into it. I picked up a book over a decade ago called The Brain That Changes Itself by Dr. Norman Deutsch. That was the first time that I was exposed to neuroscience. I'm like, I don't even know what that word means. Hearing that fire and wide together, like, what does that mean? And so just because I'm a curious monkey, I decided to just fall into that, little path and covered Oliver Sacks and a lot of the mentors that we share and that we've learned from. But I want to raise this point as well. I think it's very important to share that spirituality is an individual path. I personally do not believe that someone can teach you that. That is a path that you have to choose consciously, take upon yourself and take your adventure. And whether that's a certain religion or whatever God means to you, Being able to be in control of your mind in God mode, whatever that means for you, is all to choose again for you. But please allow yourself to be open to what's out there, and learn how to say no to people that tell you what the right thing to do. Because nobody knows except you and your intuition what's right for you. And you've experienced it yourself. Well, once upon a time, people told you that it was bad to do certain things, but look where you are now.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it took time, but once I'd come round to, there's something bigger than me, isn't there? Or I would be dead.
Absolutely. The life.
And then you're thinking, well, I'm not sure what it is. And you're not thinking about the bigger plan and all this sort of stuff. But you're thinking, well, there must be something going on. Because I was virtually just, I mean, a nurse said to my mum, I'll see you in 3 days. And then when the nurse came back to the hospital, she said, oh, hello, I never thought I'd see you again. And my mother said, well, you said that she said, I thought he'd be dead. But if he's alive, something's keeping him alive. So he'll survive now. And then I think then they gave me blood. They gave me about 6 pints of blood, 5 or 6 pints of blood. Can't remember. I don't know.
Amazing.
But,
you're living at this stuff beyond the cognitive mind, beyond the grasp of what we can put into words, beyond anything that we can explain. Even, the theories that come out of the world of quantum physics and epigenetics and neuroscience. It's not really something that you can put into words. So I find it really interesting when people, try and tell you that this is the way. So yeah, it's.
I think by flying to Edinburgh and going for a workshop with Dr. Joe Dispenza, that was the introduction into, okay, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the real introduction, I'd already had a coach, and I said, shall I go and see Joe Dispenza? And we talked about energy in the body and the quantum. And we talked about a lot of stuff. And he said, I'll definitely go and see him and sit there and listen to his lectures for 2 or 3 days and be around the people. So now the energy, the vibe in the room, because we accept these words, but then when somebody puts them in a spiritual context or something, we'll go, I'm not listening to that. But we've said good vibes, bad vibes forever and a day. But as soon as you actually talk about it, people say, I'm not accepting that.
Yeah, it's almost like you've done something to them to make them feel uncomfortable when you're just having a conversation. But I love that, because I guess once upon a time I probably would have been that person, like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Like, I was so in what we call like level 4 thinkers, just black, right, wrong, right, on the path, and not really aware or open that everything else existed. But like yourself, it was a traumatic series of life experiences that forced me to go, well, if I'm not dead and I'm not angry and I'm not addicted to it and I'm not finding a coping mechanism, there must be a life force out there that I don't understand that's still trying to understand me as well. And that's powerful. I also have so much respect for Dr. Johnson. I did some basically became his little followed him around the world to many places. And I've also been going, and the way that he teaches is, I find, really profound, because taken decades and decades of his own work and his life story and condensed it so that the average person can process and absorb it without needing to have a PhD in quantum physics or neuroscience. He's created a way for people to understand if they're open. And, most people are open. It's just fear that holds them back. I'm sure there was a lot.
His approach, isn't it? Bridging the gap between science and spirituality.
That's
taking
right.
the dogma, because the science is the proof of what he's talking about. So I've seen him and Greg Braden and Lynn McTaggart. I went to the TCCHE conference in London, which was an amazing experience. And then I went on a week long, because I thought, well, do I need to go on a week long? I just want to go on a week long.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to go back and listen to him. I just want to go and experience now, not the weekend. I want the week.
It's just
And
time.
I've got 2 books with the notes, the 3 books with the notes, because I want to handwrite it. I want to listen to them and just absorb more of what these people have got to say.
And you hit the
Because
head right there. It's not about knowing more, it's about going deeper. The formula itself is actually really simple. Dr.
yeah,
Joe said his formula for how he reconstructed after the bike accident took him 6 weeks, even as a chiropractor, to, realign his spine, despite the limitations that the expert put on him. And so for people that are going through something, it was the same situation for me, but that formula specific wasn't what I used. I went inwards and I found what worked for me. And I think that's important to highlight to people, because some people will say, oh, but I've been meditating for like a whole month every day and nothing happened. I'm like, of course, because you're kind of forcing yourself to try and create that intention. Dr. Joe's formula is simple: elevated motion, clear intention, you manifest it. But there's so much brain power going into that formula when people are trying to do it, instead of just being in the moment and allowing it to happen. It's 2 totally different things. And I've seen it happen so many times. I'm like,
yeah. I mean, and I didn't force, as I say, I just went out. I said I was going to become fit and healthy. And then I went out and lived like a fit and healthy guy. And the body, brain, mind responded to what I was doing. And the signals that the mind and brain is sending to the body, and then some epigenetics and upregulating and downregulating the expression of the gene. And my doctors, they have no explanation as to how it happened. And I'm having gastroscopies, and that specialist is saying, no, I can't tell you. If we see any varices this time, can we tie them? And then he'll say, no, your stomach and esophagus looks perfect. And I then start telling them about the autonomic nervous system, homeostasis, balance, epigenetics, possibilities, and they're looking at me and they don't know what to say. And I said, I'll leave you with that, and I'm off. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for saying that, because I guess I'll say this with love. The experts are trained to prescribe medicine. People like Dr. Joe study human behavior and wellness. It's a completely different field, right? There's a big gap between the marriage of, and you touched on it before as well, between the marriage of the physical being and the spiritual being. There's a whole lot of work in between that is being missed in the decade that you spend becoming an expert in the field. And I love that Dr. Joe uses, the tools and the machines and the things to prove to everyday people that it wasn't something that he made up, and it wasn't just one person. I spent 10 days with him in the Mediterranean, and we did a meditation most days with 850 people vibrating to the power of love. But there's something really profound in that. I've seen now, even on around the world, even doctors are now starting to meditate before going into operations, because they are starting to understand the energy fields and the frequency that they're placing into. I guess for someone that isn't familiar with the depth of this work, when you say I'm cooking with love, it tastes better. It's the same when you go into an operation or executing something within yourself with love. So the intention of love is what brings about, the whole change. And then you flip from being, scared, Jason, not wanting to be alone, like just feeling like you need to compay, and then turning into someone who's given up and given away and shifted completely. Alcohol, compulsive and stressful behaviors that are trying to drag you backwards. So well done for that. That's a huge, huge achievement. And you're only a third of the way through your life at least. You've got the capacity to live to 160. You've got heaps of time to keep creating. So please share the word with everyone.
Yeah, but it's important though to say that I embrace both sides of it, because when I broke my clavicle, and Bruce Lipton says this, reductionism and medicine has its place.
100%.
Right. So this snapped in half, and a friend of mine, because it wasn't healing properly, and I was told it's going to heal down and in. So my back then and all the muscles and everything would have been pulled across, and they would have put me out of balance. And so a friend of mine put a plate in it for me. And I've worked with my medical team, and I now go once a year to the training facility where they do fatty liver, not viral, non-alcoholic, and alcoholic cirrhosis. And I'm like, I think that's giving back, because these people have to. So there's a place for everything, but what you can't do is say no, no. You've got to kind of say, well, again, what works best for you.
100%. Like if you've been in a car accident, please don't sit there get help. You need an adrenaline shot. You need to make sure the wound's attended to before you have to have a different operation. But I guess, look, a lot of the things that we experience in everyday life, unless it's very severe and you need, med intervention, it is preventable. You can do little things to, prompt the wellness within your mind, body, and emotions. But when it comes to life-threatening things, by all means, they have a purpose. And this is why I was sharing, the experts are trained in medicine. You need that sometimes. I wouldn't be here as a premature baby born in a refugee camp had it not been for intervention when I was younger, to help. So, with all due respect, but I think as a lifestyle, if you can choose the ways that you elongate that, then it's all going to work together. And I think someone has said to me a long time ago, if you reject one part of yourself, you reject the whole. And that's so true.
Yeah, and I think I'm less dismissive than I've ever been. I'm more accepting of things. And that seems to work, because you took off the blinkers. You're at least prepared to say, oh, okay, that may be an option.
Exactly.
Not, that's what I'm doing, and that's the way it's going, because that kind of doesn't work.
Yeah,
because we don't understand, do we? We don't understand how conditioned we are
to
live our lives.
It's
difficult because we won't accept it, then we don't question it.
Exactly.
But we get the same results.
I know, just keep doing the same thing, because that's working, right? But this is why we have these conversations. And again, it's not about me versus them or you versus them. It's more about like, this is working for some people. So if it's something that you're struggling with, like, just have a look at it. It's free to look at it and have a conversation with someone, and then if it helps you, amazing. Because I guarantee you that amongst 8 billion people, like at least 7 billion of them are experiencing some sort of stress and compulsive behaviors that they don't know how to cope with. They don't know how to manage it. Everything that they've tried. I know a lot of people that are taking this. But it's not working, because just in a state of constant going in the wheel of the house and just walk circles around themselves. So the idea of these chats is just to say, I've been through that, I'm going through that, I've overcome that. So what is it that you did that was different?
I did a video on it yesterday. I said anxiety, stress, depression, insomnia, whatever compulsive behavior you have, whether it's alcohol, drugs, exercise, shopping, sex, gambling, social media, you can overcome them all. Don't believe this thing that, you've got to live with it forever. What you've got to do is the work. You've got to do the inner work, the shadow work. You've got to get to know who you are and really decide how you want to live your life. And then everything changes. Once you stop living in the pocket of other people and doing what they want you to do, your life changes. It can be uncomfortable, but you've really got to decide what life you want. Because everyone else is running their lives with them in mind. Whatever they tell 100%. You, although you'll have more healthy and less healthy relationships with your friends and loved ones and all that, primarily it's about them. So you have to make it about you. And the healthier you are, the more then you can give back to those people. It's like not what you taught.
I think you were tapped on the
things like, don't be selfish. It's not all about you. Right? When you think, well, who is it about then? If it isn't about me, who is it about?
Yeah, I have a saying that I share with people, which is to be respectfully selfish. You know, you have to put yourself as number one because you're not good to anyone unless you're in a state of absolute peace and, you know, stillness within yourself. And that only
I
comes
said it
from,
to a sorry, I said it to a friend of mine one night. He was telling me about all his family, and I said, "Where do you come in all this?" And he said, "You're not listening. The grandchildren." I said, "No, no, you're not listening. If you're not number one, you cannot look after those people to the best of your ability, or how you really do want to look after those people, because you're too busy looking after those people. It doesn't work that way. You must be on top of your game if you want everyone else around you to get the benefits of it."
I think it's beautiful to have a philanthropist, you know, a sage mindset vision and want to give back to people. But you're absolutely right because at the end of the day, you know, I'm sure we've heard the regrets of the dying from everyone. Everyone that I've spoken to, even, you know, losing people that were quite young due to, you know, the C word and other ways, they said, I wish I had done what I want to do versus caring about what other people think and did because now it's over. I don't have any more time. You know, but the thing is, right now, if you're breathing, this is the moment to make a change right now and create that time.
Yeah, and I mean, there's one very big reason I'm saying who would I be without my business. One of the one is not being beaten by people, but one is who will people think I am unless I've got the money and the cars and the clothes and to be able to live the lifestyle I was living. Now, I did 3 British and Irish Lions tours by the time I was 30. I'd been to Africa, I'd been to Australia, and I'd been to New Zealand. Most people wait until they retire. And I was with amazing people, and we were seeing things like Bali and Thailand, and it just incredible places. Yeah. But what you're doing is as well, you're taking yourself out of the environment you don't want to be in for a month and doing what you want for a month compulsively, and nobody says a word. So your life is, but right. So that was my identity. Right. And losing that stuff was it was just so scary. But
Yeah.
in the
Very
meantime, I've replaced all these things with all these healthy things that I love doing, which are more important to me. I'm more important to me.
And that's the one thing that I found is
We
very
get so
common.
caught up in it.
Exactly. No, a lot of people struggle with change, not because change is hard. Change is very easy. Like the amount of time that you blink your eyes is change. Like it's literally that simple. But what I've seen them struggle with is replacing what they're used to doing with something else. You know, if you look at, for example, the addiction to food, losing weight is really easy. Like you could go on YouTube and like it's very simple to do that. But because you've got so many things that are in your life at the moment, removing them one by one, not something to replace it with, is the issue that I've seen people struggle with, and I was one of those people. You know, when I started my fitness journey, I was so unfit that I couldn't plank for 10 seconds. So I had a challenge accepted attitude, and I got from minus 10 seconds to 8 minutes. You know, that was crazy. But at the same time, it was something that I wanted to, you know, feel for myself. I'm like, I don't want to end my life and, you know, say, oh, I wish I learned how to plank. Like, I know it's a stupid little thing, but those little goals that you set for yourself and those little challenges that are just something for you, you know, they're going to change the way, you know, the movie plays back. Because I've heard that, you know, on your way out, you have 7 seconds of replay. So what do you want to replay back to, you know, in that 7 seconds that your brain's still sticking when you go to wherever it is that we go next? Nobody knows, right? Nobody has a clue. We have theories, but nobody has any idea. So I think it's really important to share what you have and just, you know, go all in, do life, have fun, but also become comfortable with not having all the things to show that you are someone because you've got all the materialistic things. And you know how many people I know that are so wealthy, but they're miserable. I had a client that I work with, and he's got everything except love. Doesn't have someone to love. He's got nobody to share this with. And to me, that is the saddest thing in the world because he doesn't even love himself. You know, so I think it's beautiful what you've done. You've gone from pain and grief to learning how to really love who you are as a human being, and then giving it back to the community that you share your gift with, anyone that's listening to this. So you have gone through stress and you're addicted to something, whether it's alcohol or, as Jason said, any of the other million things that we do to cope. So stop judging yourself and allow yourself to see that you're trying to find a coping mechanism because you're still trying to solve the problem. That's a good thing. But you can leave that life behind, just as Jason has, just as I have, just as many other people have in the world, and take a different direction. If you point your back towards the tree, where are you going? To the tree. But if you point your back towards the future that's full of love and full of the things that you actually want to experience, that's where it's going to go. By doing this deep in the work, and I'm sure you agree, you get that clarity. You get that alignment with what it is that you value. You bring people into your world that support that vision with you, and you leave behind people that need to grow. It's not leaving them behind anymore. Goodbye forever. I've had many people come back and apologize, because they were different people at the time, and they didn't want to accept that I was changing. I got the label of, you think you're too good now because blah blah blah. I'm like, no, I just don't like getting drunk every weekend, and I don't think it's a good example to have that, especially around children. And I want to, immerse myself in personal development, go to seminars and versus keep doing that. So it's so important to be able to look back on your lifetime, and we're so young. We are so young. If you've the watchers dived into the world of epigenetics, we have the capacity to live to 160. Proven by the population in Japan, for example. There must be a reason why they are 100 plus as couples walking up those steep mountains and living very abundant lives full of wellness and so calm. How calm are the Japanese people? Maybe there's something in that, right? And but yeah, I think we've touched on some really amazing, important ways to process what you're going through, become aware of what's happening for you, to around you, so that you can make a decision and make a choice as to what you want to do with it. If you don't want to do anything with it and you're happy with things exactly the way they are, perfect. That's your present moment. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But if you want to be one of those people like Jason and I and many others that just want to keep inspiring, to pivot, it only takes a little bit of change to make a big impact on your life and the people around you. And that's a pretty cool memory to have in the last 7 seconds. What do you think? Absolutely. It's gone silent. I've lost you.
Me? No, I mean, we talk. I think people say, well, what would people say in your funeral? But yeah, that I've done more in 10 years than I think I'd realistically done in the previous 20 in terms of experiences and really genuinely laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Not sort of laughing because if you don't laugh, you're going to explode. Yeah,
Much.
it just sort of. I'm with cycling. Actually, I was in a meeting last week or the week before with cycling. The next one, done many, but Venice to Dubrovnik, and I met the guys I've not seen since 2017, and it was amazing to see them, and they're all like, "Yeah, it's great," and it's just such a great feeling. You know people that you didn't know previously, and they're all happy to see you, and you're happy to see them. And now you're sort of getting ready to go on another trip, and it's all going to be, we're cycling 500-600 miles, but this is unsupported. We're going to carry all the stuff. It's just a new experience again.
Yeah, and getting to know.
I mean, you could fit that 7 seconds could all come from the last 10 years. The relationships I've rebuilt with my parents. Every day I sit with my parents because I'm fortunate enough to be able to.
So important. And, I love that you circled it back to that. At the end of the day, that's actually one of the things that I've seen many people that have conflict in their lives avoid instead of work on. I avoided it for a long time. One of the reasons I used to escape was because I didn't know how to express what I was feeling. And growing up in a Oriental family, even though I grew up in Italy, emotions wasn't really something that we discussed. We discussed materialistic things that give you status in society and identity, right? But um, yeah, it's very simple to forget what they went through to bring you into the world. From the intention of making love and then the actual physical creation of you. It's a beautiful process that you're here. So if there is any angst in that area, highly recommend work on that because, imagine what it's like. And I've worked with a few people that have been very angry with their mothers, one to the point where she wanted to change her name, because of wanting to let go of what was really happening below the surface. But the moment she let that go, like yourself, now she's got a beautiful relationship with her 90-year-old mother. And it's something on your conscious that you can take away and be really proud of. If that's the only thing that you do in life, let it be the only thing that you do. There's many things.
I love that I spend time with my parents. I have my parents in my life like I haven't had for many years. And as I say, I like the other thing that we didn't come with a manual.
Can you imagine?
but don't blame them for the way that they brought you up because they just learned from the people that brought them up. And but now, I mean, we talk, and my mum will often say, I've learned so much from you by listening to you over the last 10 years. It's just a two-way thing. It's a proper relationship where we converse.
It's very
always people telling you what to do, as opposed to saying, got something to say? What would you like to say? And it always really, really bugged me that, who are you to tell me what to do?
I think
I'm pretty good with it now. I mean, I'll only do what I want to do.
it comes from a place
I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because it's done with awareness. It isn't done in a reactive way any longer.
Yeah,
I said it to my friend. He said, "Oh, with this," I said, "I never did anything that I didn't want to do." And he said, "I'll take that as a bite." I said, "You can take it whichever way you like, but I only ever did what I wanted to do because I did." It was always done. It was always done in such a way where there wasn't a great deal of thought going into it. But then when I was in business, there was a lot of thought going into the customer that was screaming at me.
That's fun.
So I get the job done. I get his drawing office up and running, his engineering department up and running, and then be like, right, and now I need to go to the pub. I need to be with my friends. I need to have a laugh. I need to drink.
I need to energize myself and get you out of my system, basically.
Whereas now you think, oh, I'll go listen to the sea. Because it is. You can sit on a rock and you can just watch the waves rolling in. And you'll get more out of that than you will by saying, oh, I'm going to drink this or I'm going to do that or run excessively. I mean, how many people I know now that they're doing 100 miles a week, but they look like they're doing 300 miles a week. You think, are you maybe doing a little bit too much? Oh no, I've got to run. You think, you can't be with your thoughts, can you?
It's very interesting you raise that because I've got someone that I'm working with at the moment and he's an ultra marathon runner, an Ironman, swimmer, does all the things, and despite the signs of severe stress appearing in his life, he's still learning how to calibrate that I want and that I enjoy because there's a gray area between if I don't this, if this then that rule. Like if I don't do this, then it means I'm no longer the identity of the Iron Man. I'm like, yes, but it's causing severe dis-ease in every other area of your life. Why not focus on love right now? Because one of the reasons that, he's taking all his time to do that is because he doesn't want to come home and be lonely. It always comes back to, how comfortable are you in your own skin to sit there when the running's not there, you don't have the running high, you don't have the ocean to worry about, there's no distractions around you, it's just you. And when you don't know how to quieten the mind, you go back into a world of like, and accept it as it is, and I'm happy to just be here. It can get really crazy. And yeah, I guess that's why it's good to have these conversations. And we've been going for a good hour, but I'm sure we can go for heaps longer.
They're
You know,
important
people,
conversations, though, aren't they? Because I know, like I say, going back to that point we made, you're in a position sometimes where even if you don't know what to do, it can be such a daunting thought as you're moving forward to think, well, I'm never going to get there, or because the mind will come up with all sorts of things. But it's a process. So they're very important conversations to share with people, because you can overcome anything.
I
There are no
agree.
limitations. The only limitation is you.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I encourage. And you know, tomorrow night I'm speaking to a gut health expert as well, because you know, when I started my journey, I had no idea how important that was in relation to, you know, everything else that happens in your life, not just your physical being, connected in a deeper, longer highway. And I'm sure you're aware of it with the world that
Yeah.
you've come into as well. But you know, if we don't talk about these things, nobody knows any different. And I want to look back on my lifetime and say, I had the courage to, like, you know, be that person that just said it like it is. And you know, you can judge me, do whatever you like, but you can't undo it. You know, ignorance is the age of information is a choice, but at least I played my part and brought people on that also have gone through, you know, the emotions and the promotion of the emotion causing chaos in their lives, and basically, you know, showing people that it's possible. It doesn't matter which end of the scale and how far you've gone down the rabbit hole or wherever it is that you ended up with, you know, things like addiction and stress and disease disrupting your life, you can always come back to your center. And that's the most important thing, you know, to be able to step back into your own world of inner peace and self mastery. If you've got that, I guarantee you life is going to be very, very simple. And you'll still have problems, but they'll be different challenges and problems, good ones.
You just perform at your best, don't you? And if you're in business, your business will be better. The people that work for you, with you, the relationships are better. Everything is better because the relationship with yourself is so much healthier. The understanding of yourself is so important to bring it back to you. Everything starts and ends with you. We're not taught that.
100%. You know, leadership is a trait that only you can, you know, embody, and everything that comes from that, parenting, businesses, relationships, you know, the relationship you have with food, it all comes down to how much you want to own that hat, that leadership hat that you have within your life. And it's this work, you know, whichever way you do it. If you want to do it by talk therapy, if you want to do it by whatever modality you resonate with and works, go and do that, because everyone's different. You know, there's no, for me, things don't work. I don't align to it. For you, might be the same. But you know, if we get out there an abundance of things that are available for them to do it simply, to get the change instead of get lost in another, you know, thing. Then I see, because I see the world right now, despite what's happening, through the eyes of a curious child. I'm still that little girl that was, you know, born in a premature box in Thailand and grew up meeting on the farm, was chasing cows and, you know, just being a kid. Like, that's still how I see the world. I've got an amazing guest coming in on Saturday. And we're going to be talking to us about the world of permaculture, all the way from Jordan. At the moment, he's there doing a project on how to help people know and teach them how to regenerate from barren land. You know, that's the stuff that I'm going to look back on and think, oh my goodness, right? I've got to be a part of that, you know. So if we can encourage more people to be brave and go all in doing whatever it is that you do, but remember that you can come back no matter where you've been, come back into balance and just stay in that creation curious mode. We're gonna have a beautiful world. And that's what I see. Maybe it's naive because of all the things that are happening, but I truly believe that, you know, there's a balance. We were created with balance. We were created with the male and the female coming together. That's the perfect amalgamation to create who you are. And yeah, that's how I see the world. So
That's a great point, because I've been talking about this, masculine, feminine, the whole. because I see too many now saying masculine men, masculine men, masculine men. Now you've got to embrace the whole. If you want the life that you want, you think you want, then you don't say I'm going to be that or that. You say I'm going to be whole.
Yes,
and know when it needs to be applied. And that's awareness.
it is. Self-mastery, self-awareness versus self-destruction. I say yes to that.
Yep, definitely.
Taking up way too much of your time, but I do want to ask you, what have you got on the cards for 2023 and beyond? What is it that you want people to share with you, create with you? What is it for you? Final words.
Final words. I just want to raise the levels of consciousness in the world. I want people to live a life they truly love, that they find fulfillment in. Then they will be more successful than they've ever thought they can be, even if they think they're successful now. But it means that we all come together and collaborate and not in competition, because this competition thing doesn't work.
Yeah,
the world is falling apart because we're all in competition and we live in separation. Working together in high states of consciousness, awareness, is just got to be the way forward. And we'll all be more fulfilled people. The world will just be a better place, won't it, really?
exactly. And thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. A world where people are more awakened, a world where people are just more self-aware, a world where people are just learning to co-create and cohabitate versus compete is the place that I want to live. So I'm here and I'm grateful and I'm happy, and thank you for sharing that. But yeah, if you guys, anyone who's catching the live, wants to connect with Jason, please do. There may be something in this conversation that has struck your heart. Maybe it's something you're experiencing. Maybe it's just a conversation when I have with someone that's going through it for somebody else that maybe you're taking care of. The reason I'm having these conversations with such a wide variety of people from all walks of life is because maybe you've never had the opportunity to hear the raw and real version. None of this was scripted. I had never even met Jason before today, apart from the exchanges that we had on social media. And that's a beautiful thing. I trust my intuition, and it said, there's a story in this man that people need to hear. And, it's quite inspiring to see someone flip their world from, alcohol abuse and behaviors that were derailing you and stressed, to a place where you're happy in the stillness of you going on a 100K bike ride. And maybe if I'm in Europe one day, I'll join you. I love riding. So definitely something I look forward to doing around the world. But thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate taking an hour.
Really enjoyed it.
Out and down the track. I'd love to catch up again and see what it is that you've created and where you are, and the other amazing things based on the intention and the seed that we've planted today, because a lot of people's lives will change if they just do, and if they just embody the few little things that we've shared. And it's very, very easy and very, very simple to find out how to do that for yourself. Just ask the question. It's still free to talk to people these days, so don't be scared about raising your hand and saying, hey, I want to know more about that. But we didn't even touch on the breath, the asthma. Maybe next time we'll go into that, because I think that's really important too. A lot of people are just coping with that in ways that I see long-term not benefiting them. And I'd like to have a discussion to see how it's helped you by doing it holistically. And that is the end of this live today. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Jason, for again.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. On that note, I'll end the live, and I'll see you guys on the next one.